Hello everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't make it today. I've had some family emergencies that I've had to be a part of, and I'm really sad that I'm not going to be able to be in the last class today and participate in discussion. But I made this video just so I can do my presentation and also hear you guys' feedback on my presentation and my paper altogether. So my paper is titled "The Future According to Octavia Butler," and essentially what I'm trying to do is relate Afrofuturism and the parable of the Sower with the question of why is the parable of the Sower considered a base text in Afrofuturist black science fiction, and how can we determine it as a base text, and also if it is a base text, how does that change how the book can be interpreted, and how does the book change the definition of Afrofuturism? So in order to answer the questions I just posed, I divided my paper into several sections that sort of tie together in the overall, I guess, layer of the paper. The first way I divided it was I divided the first section into why it is classified as an Afrofuturist text. The second I did was divided as an Afrofuturist commentary on one, environmentalism, two, the African American community in the early 90s, as well as in the past, present, and future when dealing with slavery, the Industrial Revolution, and just the common problem of Afrofuturism, which is how can one create a future when you have a systematically erased past based on slavery in the 17th and 18th century. Okay, so the third group I categorized my essay into was a focus on gender and sexuality in my analysis, just because while I was reading the novel, especially in the main characters of Lauren, as well as many of the women that were part of the Earthseed community group that she amassed as she was traveling, there was a lot of commentary about gender roles as well as sexuality and sexual violence in this novel. The fourth and final way I divided my essay was to connect Afrofuturism, the concept of Donna Haraway's cyborg, and the novel Parable of the Sower. And the way I did this was, the first is I connected the cyborg to the character of Lauren because I can see a almost cyborgian characteristics as part of her character, and then I related the cyborg as a component of Afrofuturism. In my previous paper proposal, which I changed in order to write about this one, that was more of a discussion about how Afrofuturism and the cyborg relates. And what I thought of at first was that the cyborg was a component of Afrofuturism and not the other way around, where the cyborg could be an Afrofuturist idea, but it can also be separate, whereas in this case I'm using it as a component of Afrofuturism. So what I'm going to do first is read several selected paragraphs from my paper. My paper is the maximum length, 8 pages, but I chose several paragraphs from my paper that I think are the main arguments of my paper, and I just wanted to afterwards talk about my sources in the paper, where I think I'm struggling with, and then I'm going to ask for any commentary that you guys can send me through the email address that's related to this YouTube account, or just finding me on Facebook, or even telling Tiffany about anything so she can email me any criticisms. If you guys can just give me any advice while I am reading the essay or anything like that, it'd be greatly appreciated. So I'm just going to read the thesis and then move into several body paragraphs, and I'll be sure to tell you guys when I'm, I guess, skipping paragraphs in my essay. So, Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower provides criticisms of global society in the past, present, and future through an Afrofuturist perspective. Parable of the Sower can be classified as an Afrofuturist text based on themes, character descriptions, and settings present in the novel. Butler's placement of the novel in a dystopian near future of 2025 is the first indication of Afrofuturism. In this future, human technologies and production have caused rampant natural disaster, leaving much of the United States a barren wasteland, such as California, the main setting of the Parable of the Sower. Technology, through the use of new drugs, factory production, weaponry, and academia has incorporated itself into new society, and many people see these technologies as a way to find work and help in a desolate situation. This is not unlike the definition of Afrofuturism presented by Derry, which describes a prosthetically enhanced future through images of technology, Derry 180. Butler's created future is shaped by technology and production, as the most sought-after areas of the country are those with the greatest amounts of technology and therefore the greatest amount of work and sustainability. Lauren's journey after her house is burned to the ground brings her north, more specifically up toward Canada, a metaphor for both progress towards the future and escape from the enslavement that destroyed African culture in the 18th and 19th centuries, Butler 169. The characters of Lauren, Zahara Moss, Allie and Gilchrist, and Emery Salas give merit to Afrofuturist criticisms of Butler's novel through their connection to past and present social issues. When Derry interviewed prominent African-American science fiction novelist Samuel R. Delany, Delany described a massive cultural destruction experienced by Africans, which presents Afrofuturism as an attempt by black authors to create both a new future and past for their culture, which Butler attempts to accomplish through her characters. Zara, the wife of Richard Moss, represented a form of slavery and patriarchal past which was common of 18th century slave practices. In this future, according to Lauren, some middle-class men prove they're men by having one wife and a lot of beautiful, disposable young servant girls. Nasty. Butler 37. This practice is reminiscent of plantation owners purchasing beautiful slave women as workers and forbidden concubines, and is Butler's attempt to connect a black past. Allie and Gilchrist, as well as Emery Salas, connect Butler's novel to the Industrial Revolution and the issue of human trafficking and prostitution. Emery and her family lived a life of debt slavery, working agriculture until her husband sickened and died, and her sons were taken away to pay for their father's debt, prompting Emery to escape with her daughter Tori, Butler 288. Emery's story is a direct reference to the debt slavery of the Reconstruction and Industrial Revolution periods of American history, in which minorities were exploited for their advancement of society. Allie and Jill were running away from a life of prostitution when Lauren's party discovered them, referencing the ever-growing issue of human sex trafficking across the world. Butler 273. The themes of the novel are perhaps the greatest connection to Afrofuturism present. Derry's formal definition of Afrofuturism is stated as African-American signification that appropriates images to technology in a prosthetically enhanced future, or more simply stated, how African Americans imagine themselves in the future through the social climate of both present day and past. Derry 180. Butler's themes in Parable of the Sower: religious liberation, feminine sexuality, environmentalism, consumerism and production, technology, drug abuse, and family structure are all seen through an African American gaze, as the narrator Lauren describes the environment around her through her religion of Earthseed and social commentary. Through these connections, it can be inferred that Parable of the Sower is indeed an Afrofuturist text. So in that section of my essay, I tried to place comparison as to why it's an Afrofuturist text. This next section is the social commentary that Butler was trying to make. Butler's created environment is meant as an Afrofuturist commentary of the present and past social issues in the African American community when Butler published Parable of the Sower in 1993. Butler's areas of commentary of this time period concerns the drug abuse and gang violence prevalent throughout the novel. Drug abuse is first mentioned in the novel when Lauren mentions her hyperempathy syndrome, which causes her to experience the pain and suffering of others she observes. Butler 11. Lauren explains the cause of her disorder by stating, thanks to Paracetamol, the small pill, the Einstein powder, the particular drug my mother chose to abuse before my birth killed her, I'm crazy. Butler 12. The Einstein drug was used in the novel by competing scholars in academia, causing addiction and birth defects, much like the rap and cocaine abuse that afflicted the African American community of Butler's present, especially in larger cities such as Los Angeles, a major setting in the novel. Another drug in the novel, pyro, relates to more gang-oriented violence of the early 1990s. Lauren describes large groups of young men and women in tribe-like painting pillaging towns throughout the West, high on the drug pyro, causing them to have an insatiable desire to burn anything they can get their hands on. Lauren describes them as bald people with painted heads, faces, and hands when confronted with them while her village is destroyed, Butler 154. Butler's description of these groups seems to bear resemblance to gang activity, as matching colors, drug abuse and sales, and rampant physical and sexual violence are all shared characteristics of the Pyros and large gangs such as the Bloods and Crips of the early 90s. According to America's Drug Abuse Profile, the late 1980s to early 1990s saw a rise in the number of low-purity heroin addicts, increasing its value and sales. This rise in a fairly prominent drug at the time is comparable to the sudden appearance of pyro, and much like these groups, gang activity in America saw a steady increase until 1994, where a peak of 1.1 million violent crimes related to gangs committed was reached. Harrell. Butler draws upon the period of the Industrial Revolution throughout much of the novel, especially when Lauren first hears of a community known as Olivar. Olivar is meant to serve as an escape from the world where Lauren lives, where people accept smaller salaries than their socio-economic group is used to in exchange for security, a guaranteed food supply, jobs, and help in their battle with the Pacific. Butler 119. Butler immediately confirms the reader's suspicions by stating that the people in Lauren's town know about early American company towns in which the companies cheated and abused people. Butler 119. There's nothing safe about slavery, states Lauren's father, reinforcing Butler's presentation of the debt slavery of the Industrial Revolution. Butler 119. Butler uses the ability for Afrofuturism to be used as a tool for critical analysis of society to provide criticisms of her present and past as an African American. In that paragraph were some of the major concerns I had in my essay, and probably the areas where I wanted to receive the most criticism, which is if the class thought that my connections were valid when looking at time periods in both the past and Butler's present, which was 1993, especially in the areas of Los Angeles and California of larger cities. So if anyone had anything that they saw that were problems or strengths in that area, if you can email me or just tell Tiffany about it, I'd love to hear it. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is Lauren's liberated sexuality as part of my paragraphs about gender and statements of sexuality in the novel. As per Lauren's liberated sexuality, Lauren speaks frequently on her decision of marriage and open sexual relations with her boyfriend Curtis in her Robledo community and her lover Bankole in her Earthseed community. Liberated sexuality is a common expression in Afrofuturism, and Butler's text empowers Lauren through her choices in sexual expression. Lauren uses simple, descriptive language to tell of her sexual lifestyle, showing no aspersion against her own sexuality. When she is with Curtis, she describes the condoms they use as old-fashioned, but they work, commentating not on the sexual act itself, but the responsibility she takes when expressing her sexuality. Butler 112. What is more interesting, however, is her relationship with Bankole, her lover in the Earthseed community. She describes her acts of sex with Bankole as serious and uncomplicated, serving as a meeting of one's needs both physically and romantically. Butler 266. What is unique about this relationship, however, is the disregard for age difference, as Lauren is just barely 18 and Bankole is somewhere in his late 40s to early 50s. At first, Bankole takes issues with this fact, jokingly exclaiming, "You're a baby, I'm a child molester." Butler 267. However, Lauren sees no issue with this fact, explaining, "You want to be with me, and I want to be with you. We're not going to split up because of age, are we?" Butler 267. Lauren's liberated sexuality is a commentary on the postmodern family, as defined by Stockard and Johnson, a time starting in the 1980s where more people were choosing to be married at older ages, fertility rates declined, and promiscuity began to become accepted and integrated into common culture. Stockard and Johnson, 53. Butler positions Lauren to say that the postmodern family does not go far enough with the concepts of femininity and sexuality, and that sexual expression and lifestyle should be a human choice, regardless of societal standards. The character of Lauren is a direct embodiment of Butler's positions on gender issue. What I left out, just for the sake of time in these comments, were my relation to gender in this as well. So if anyone would like to see my actual full essay, feel free to email me about it, and I'll be sure to send the entire essay to you. I just would love to see criticisms and comments on some of the passages that I've had to leave out for the sake of time. The final thing I'm going to talk about is the relation between Lauren and the cyborg. In relation to gender and sexuality, Lauren and the cyborg show striking similarities. Gender-wise, both Lauren and the cyborg possess a sexually androgynous appearance, as Lauren dresses as a man to avoid conflict when traveling, serves many male roles as a leader and prophet as earlier discussed, and is even tall enough to fool people, Butler 171. The cyborg, according to Haraway, is a creature in a post-gender world. It has no truck with bisexuality, pre-Oedipal symbiosis, unalienated labor, or other seductions to organic wholeness, meaning that it too possesses stereotypes of both genders simultaneously, while at the same time existing outside of them. Haraway 150. Finally, both the cyborg and Lauren express a liberated sexuality, as the cyborg is actually free from the constraints of sexual oppression by being beyond sexual desires, while Lauren chooses to ignore the standards for feminine sexuality in her culture. Haraway's Cyborg is the final component in placing Parable of the Sower as an Afrofuturist-based text. So those were the paragraphs of my paper that I chose to read just for the sake of conserving time. The major questions I would like to ask people about this are, is my explanation as to why it is a base text clear? Is there anything missing from that explanation? In relation to gender and sexuality with the cyborg, am I missing links? Do I not have enough, or do I have too much? Anything like that. If you guys have any questions for me, feel free to email me at jorman, all one word, at rochester. Wow. Feel free to email me with the YouTube email address that's included in the video. Thank you, Tiffany, for allowing me to present the video, or even just present to the class with my situation. And I'd just like to say I had a really great time in the class, and I've had a really good time, I guess, exploring an area that I really wasn't familiar with. So thank you, and I will hopefully see you guys around campus.